Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us for the principal surgery with the students. And we have here the full time officer team, full on, four full time officers, principal herself, and Julie. Principal, would you like to say hi to the students?
Yeah, hello everyone. It's a miserable day, and wherever you are on campus or at home, I hope you're keeping warm and enjoying yourselves.
So thanks a lot, principal, for taking out the time and holding this surgery with the students and giving the opportunity to students to ask questions from you directly. Uh, if any students want to ask any questions for the principal, just drop a comment, ask the question, and we'll put it up. And the principal will be able to answer any of the questions. So, just before we take in questions from the students, let's go with the full time officer because I'm sure they've got some questions for you as well, principal. Not that we don't talk. With you, we have a lot of meetings with you, but just so that students are aware of some of the conversations as well. So Tabitha, would you like to go first? What would your question for the principal be?
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure mine won't come as a surprise, principal. But it's fantastic to see what the university has been doing in regards to tackling racism and the Call It Racism campaign that's been launched on campus and has been going on for the past few months. And it's going on until the 21st of March. So it's fantastic to see, the efforts the university has put in terms of that agenda. But where do you see the university going post the campaign? Because that's just the beginning. So where do we see GCU going with the plans forward?
That's a really important question, Tabitha, because campaigns only raise awareness. They don't necessarily change behaviour. So then the next stage is that the university must look at our policies, practices, and procedures and ensure that we embed appropriate procedures and avenues for voices to be heard when things aren't going well. So the campaign raises awareness. It tells all of our staff and students out there, look, it's okay to come forward and say, this isn't working for me, or this happened and it really is not fair and it's not right. And we've got to get a handle on it. We've got to act in relation to issues around racism. And I can reassure you, Tabitha, that as an institution, I think all of us, staff and students, were determined to act on these issues, not to hide away from difficult things that happen, but to say, okay, that's not acceptable. That behaviour or that statement isn't acceptable. That way of being is not acceptable to us, and we've got to tackle it. So we've got to be brave, Tabitha.
Yeah, that's that's
Thanks.
that's fantastic, and I think it's very much appreciated the effort that's been put on through the institution itself. It's really taken ownership of the campaign, which is fantastic.
And
Thanks.
well-being is about well-being for everyone. You know, it's not just about focusing on our students. Students, you're all part of our community, our GCU. So students and staff working together to promote mental health and well-being, and just to get rid of any kind of discrimination or racism. Uh, you know, that some people have said, well, that's impossible. But the important thing is to say, look, it's happening. Let's tackle it.
Thanks, principal, for answering that, and thanks, Tabitha, for the question. Olivia, do you have a question for the principal?
Yes, and I know you touched upon well-being just there, and that's what my question also kind of centres around. Obviously, each year more statistics come out about students who are struggling with anxiety, depression, low mood, um, and the university always each year kind of does great work and continues improving on what's offered to students. But I just wondered, in response to the kind of concerning statistics that came out last year, um, what what is the university's plans, or does the university have plans to increase or expand upon the wellbeing support that is currently there for students? Um, and also, do you have any words of advice for students who maybe haven't disclosed that they're having those issues and how to come forward?
Okay. Well, let's go to that last bit first because that's really, really important. So, any students out there having difficult thoughts, feeling down, feeling low, feeling worried about life, have practical issues that they're struggling to deal with, please don't sit on your own worrying about these issues. Come forward and speak to us. We've got some fantastic student life supporters. We've got wonderful supporters and counsellors in the University Students Association, as well as in our student life organisation on campus. But, even if you can't feel that you can reach out to a fellow student or to somebody from student life, you might want to talk to your personal tutor. We've put in place training for over 400 of our staff members, training with how to deal with difficult questions and to open up difficult conversations. We know that training is needed. These are tough things to deal with, but my advice to any student sitting out there worrying, don't worry on your own. Don't feel anxious or depressed on your own. I promise you, you will be heard, you will be looked after. We'll make sure we personalise that care and support. And I can also promise you, 100%, it will be confidential. Anything that you discuss with a member of the team or with a member of the Students Association, we will keep that information confidential and we will support you through the process. So in general, mental health and wellbeing, as you said, Olivia, this is a problem that we've had in the sector, even before COVID. The data shows that there were, increases in the numbers of our student population and staff, to be honest, who were saying, gosh, well-being and mental health issues, they're really plaguing me at the moment. I'm not coping fully in the way I'd like to. And then, of course, COVID hit, and that completely exacerbated feelings of loneliness and isolation and depression. And the last Thriving Learner survey for Scotland, which surveyed over 15,000 of our students in Scotland, it wasn't a random sample, it was a self-selected sample, but nevertheless, 15,000 students across Scotland answered. And, a third of them said they were feeling moderately or severely depressed. 1 in 12 had even thoughts of suicide. These are really scary levels of anxiety and depression and lack of well-being. So going forward, there's two things that we need to do. We first have to have really good pathways for dealing with our students, and I'll say again, staff too, because it's everybody in our community, who have these really awful feelings of depression or who've been thinking about suicide. We need good pathways into proper clinical support and care, because we've got fabulous counsellors on campus, but for people who are verging on a really crisis situation, we need to get you the fulsome professional support that you absolutely deserve, and we need to get you there quickly. However, we also need to have a programme of activities across the university that positively promote mental health and well-being. So we're not only training counsellors, we're training staff. We've got lots of programmes for supporting positive mental health and well-being, as do the wonderful Students Association. We have online tools, and we have in plan chances to improve the physical space that we offer on campus in relation to perhaps sporting activities, which will promote that feeling of health and well-being, as do our yoga activities in the ARC and so on and so forth. So we absolutely recognise we need to invest in people to help with the large numbers of young people who are and older people who are feeling that they're struggling with their mental health. We need to invest in staff, but we also need to constantly invest in resources and think about our own environment as a whole, as a well-being, health promoting environment. And for those people who have really serious clinical cases, we've got to have better pathways directly into the NHS, directly in partnership with GPs, a really positive, supportive environment to ensure that nobody drops through that net.
Great, thank you. That was a really detailed answer on kind of the support that's available, and also what we should be doing sector-wide as well. So thank you for that response.
Thanks a lot, Principal, for answering that. So we've got a question from Munissa. Munissa says, hi, Principal. Are there any plans in place to provide university-wide staff training for equality and diversity?
Well, I'm really glad to say we already do that. So, equality, diversity, and inclusion is at the heart of our common good sense of purpose as an institution. So we already do that. But look, let's not be complacent. We've been talking recently about racism. Tabitha raised that issue. And we know that we still have challenges on equality, diversity, and inclusion in our community. You can't take your eye off the ball with this. So we do have training programs, quite a multiplicity of training programs. We were 5th in the world for our work on gender equality in the Times Higher Global Impact Rankings. But we want to be first in the world. You can never be complacent. It's not about being competitive. It's just about never taking your eye off the ball, ensuring that equality, diversity, and inclusion is at the heart of every single thing we do. And, I believe really strongly that you tend to prioritize actions for things that you measure. So we've got to measure these issues regularly, be open and honest with the results. We've done well on gender equality. There's some areas we don't do quite so well, so we've got to measure what we're doing and look to enhance and improve consistently how we go about dealing with the challenge.
Thanks for that answer, Principal, and thanks a lot, Munissa, for the question. I'm sure you found that helpful. We've also got a question from Jessica. So Jessica says, "Hi, Principal. With the COVID-19 restrictions changing at the end of March, will the university update its policy on masks and bring back more lectures, seminars to be on campus again?"
So, Jessica, we always follow government guidelines. I mean, that's the key. Government public health guidelines. And where it makes sense for vulnerable individuals who feel specifically vulnerable to COVID infection, where it makes sense, then we will not say to those individuals, you must not wear masks. So whilst there may be a general directive, and we will follow what that directive is in full from the government, then we will also be flexible in our approach, in that those individuals who wish to continue to wear masks, we should support them in so doing if they feel that's something that's important to them. In terms of bringing back more lectures and seminars to be on campus again, we have a full program of activities. We're certainly going to do that. In terms of the very large lectures on campus, we've been discussing this issue, and I've discussed it already with the student president, Adil. There's a mixed view at the moment. I mean, we're open to consultation about this. Quite a lot of the students that we've discussed this with actually welcome the very big lectures, the 500-seater lectures that we deliver. They actually quite welcome those to be online, because it's something that they can watch, rewind, replay, engage with in their own time. And of course, it means that you don't have to sit for a whole hour in a very large lecture theatre with many, many other people. And why is it important for us to remain vigilant with regard to COVID and with regard to future potential pandemics? Well, that's because the COVID pandemic is still with us. The World Health Organization has not said that there is an end to the global pandemic of COVID. And we know that our Oxford scientists, the scientist Sarah Gilbert, who leads the laboratory who developed the vaccine AstraZeneca against COVID, we know that Sarah Gilbert and her team are currently preparing vaccines to at least 10 variants of COVID-19. So we are through the worst of this particular pandemic, but we have to be vigilant. So my answer is we will follow government guidelines. I'm loving the fact that there are more students on campus, more of our staff are back on campus. If you're here on campus, you can feel the buzz. I've been here since September, but it's wonderful walking onto campus now. Many students are still choosing to wear masks, that they feel that's appropriate for them. There will not be such a strict requirement with regard to mask wearing after the 21st of March, or whenever the government says the end will come to that. But we must remain flexible and open and keep our eye on the data and the figures about COVID. So perhaps not as definitive an answer as you would like, but we are on track to have much, much more face-to-face, which is great for all of our mental health and well-being.
Thanks, Principal, for that. And thank you, Jessica, for the question. Bethany Mack wants to ask, could lectures still be recorded once blended learning is finished and we return to full on-campus teaching? I think it would make things easier if people needed to take time off due to catching COVID or other illnesses.
Well, Bethany, that's well observed. As I said, I think it's unlikely that we will move back into full-scale 500 students attending a lecture on campus. So that will probably be delivered in more of a hybrid way in future, and obviously be recorded once the blending learning opportunities is finished. And it really is essential. But so too is the opportunity for peer-to-peer education, face-to-face, for small group tutorial work, because there's nothing like exploring an idea face-to-face with somebody. It sparks your imagination. I'm actually sure the neurons in the brain respond differently to an online lecture than they do to a conversation that's delivered face-to-face. I mean, we know that social connectivity is really important for learning and for remembering learning, because it's much more interactive than in the online space. Having said that, the online work that's being produced by staff and students working together at our university has been fantastic. And you're right, it provides a really important bank of knowledge that, if we use it flexibly, can support those who perhaps have missed a lecture for illness or have some other issue with COVID. You're absolutely right about that. So let's keep that mixed modality going forward so that we can have the best of all worlds.
Thanks for answering that, Principal. So just while we're talking, how do you see, because that's, something that I keep on asking myself as well. We've had a discussions with the full-time officer team about this as well. How do you see the future of, education in the whole sector in Scotland? How do you see the delivery, learning and teaching delivery overall? How do you see, us learning from the pandemic, or from, what we've observed in the pandemic going forward?
I wish I had a proper crystal ball, Adil, but I think it's obvious that our hybrid approach is going to continue and going to develop and become better. We had to rush to go online in the early days of the COVID pandemic across the whole of the sector, and staff and students responded magnificently. But we need to have much more facilitated learning, new products that are genuinely developed with the hybrid mode in mind, more interactive, better use of video connectivity, and so on and so forth. So I think we're still in the early days of developing fantastic quality pedagogy. There's a lot there. We've done extremely well. So the future for us will just be to work much, much harder with our learning technologists to get a broader range of learning materials available to students, and to be much more interactive. In terms of global reach, I think what we have learned from the last 2 years is that distance learning and personalized learning through the distance learning portals is incredibly important to reducing inequalities and access to higher education, not just within Scotland, where there are still inequalities, but around the world. So again, developing those distance learning products to be the best they can possibly be, the most interactive they can possibly be, will be something that our university will genuinely want to invest in, because it will open up the doors to many, many more who wouldn't be able to access the quality of the offer that we provide at GCU.
Thanks a lot for that, Principal. And yeah, that really helps in, making us understand about the sector overall as well, because, it is a gray space in terms of, like you said, we don't really know exactly, what's ahead in the future.
But one thing's for sure, Adil, there are some practice-based professional accredited qualifications that can't be delivered in an online space. If you think of nursing, aspects of engineering, the healthcare, social care arena, those areas really do require face-to-face tutorial education, simulated learning. So there's got to be a hybrid going forward, and it's got to be better than it currently is.
Amazing. Thank you, Principal. So thanks, Bethany. Moving on, Jacob wants to ask, hello, Principal, what is happening with graduations for the students who did not manage to book a space?
Well, I can say there's still spaces available, so get onto it, Jacob. There we have a number of graduation slots. If you haven't been able to get one of the slots in April, there are slots coming online for July, and I can assure you we will create more opportunity for those who have not yet managed to book a slot. So slots, if they're all full in April, don't worry, slots are coming up in July. I can't put hand on heart and say they're absolutely available to book now, this moment, but I know that we have slots, and they are sufficient to cover the whole number of people who've said that they want to graduate in person. So fingers crossed, keep your eyes open for when the announcement is made.
Thanks, Jacob, for the question. Next question is from BSS. So, good afternoon, Principal and mates out there. Is there any free afflicted uh, one on two accreditation software skill certification on basis of student interest during program engaged with the same accredited body? So, yeah.
So this isn't something I can answer because I don't know which particular discipline it is. It looks like IT. So this is something you would have to ask your personal tutor or the head of department or even the head of school, Professor Mannion. It's not something I would be able to answer at that level of detail. So my apologies. I would refer you to your head of department or your personal tutor or head of school.
Thanks, Principal. So yeah, I think we could as full-time officers could inform BSS about the relevant places to flag that question. But thanks a lot, BSS, for the question. So he meant I hope I pronounced that name right. Sorry if I did. What about those students who come with family and find accommodation? Can we do any accommodation spaces for them? So I think that's regarding the overall student accommodation crisis that we're facing in Scotland.
Yeah, this is a tough one. We have some family accommodation at Caledonian Court, but it's really very limited. This is a challenge to developers, isn't it? To develop because they're making, I would imagine, reasonable profits. But it's for us to challenge developers with a loud voice and say, you need to provide family-based accommodation. Otherwise, you are at the mercy of the landlords in the rental property throughout the city. There's a lot of rental property in the city, but whether or not it meets the specific needs of families is open to question. So that's an area, Hemant, that I think it's a useful one for us to think about. I will take that away and have a discussion with our COO, Susan Mitchell, to see where we are. But we probably don't have enough accommodation in our own small portfolio at Caledonian Court to meet the need of accommodation space for families, but it's an important thing to alert us to.
Thanks, Principal. And thanks, Heman, for the question. So Chuma wants to ask, hi, Principal, staff and students present. We are experiencing a significant increase in the number of international students. How does the university plan to make sure the increase doesn't affect students' experience?
Well, this is absolutely critical. We really have to guarantee a high quality experience for all students, regardless of where they come from in the world. And we have developed with our Deputy Vice Chancellor an international, what is now going to be an international office. So there will be extra staff involved in staffing that office to deal with it. We're also investing in extra staff to help teach our international students. And the good thing for us about this challenge is that not all of our new international students just come from one country. It's very important that our students all receive a diverse are experiencing a diverse culture. So we have a really good mix of students from countries all over the world, but we need to invest in staff to support them, to ensure we have the right staff-student ratio. We need to invest in staff to support the well-being needs of our international students, and we have certainly done that. But we have to keep our eye on it. You're absolutely right. It's a good problem to have, Juma,
Yeah.
because it shows we're popular and students like us and we're giving value for money. But, keep our eye on it.
Yeah, and we've also had that discussions together, the student body and the executive board about how we could further support the new students coming in and the increasing number of students. So we have been working together on that to make sure that students' experiences are not negatively affected in any way. So thanks a lot for that question, Chuma. I hope that was helpful. Let's go back to the full-time officers because we had to stop midway. I think Priscilla, is there anything you want to ask the principal?
Yeah, thank you, Adil. I think it's just a bit relating to what the last question was. So I remember the last, I think September sets, no, January sets. We had a few issues with CAS, and that kind of delayed some students getting their visas and then coming over. So and I think with this new September 2022 set, the full-time officers already got a few complaints about how unconditional offers is already taking so longer than it used to be. And then the students are getting mails that, oh, we have a lot of applications and all of that. That's the reason why the unconditional is getting a bit late. So my question would be that how do we, kind of avoid the issues we had with issuance of cars the last time, since we're already seeing a bit of that for offers?
Well, that's a really good question, and I was aware that a lot of students in January, February time, Priscilla, were having issues. What we have done, and I can authoritatively respond to this question, is Professor Miller has invested in more staff in recruitment and admissions. So I have seen a really positive falling off of the problems that we've had. So we've significantly increased the number of staff and reduced the turnaround time. Some of the challenges with visas are nothing we can do anything about because they're in the Home Office, but certainly our turnaround time wasn't as good as it should have been. And that was due to our staff being overwhelmed with applications. So the easy solution was increase the numbers of staff, and we've done that. Of course, staff need a wee while to train up. So we couldn't solve the problem completely overnight with new staff. You've got to, work in a team to deliver. I know Stephanie Pittacus is working all hours, God sends, to get on top of this, and I really do believe they've done the best they can possibly do. It's not just about having extra resource. You've got to integrate it. You've got to do the training. The new resource members have to be part of the whole team. But I think we're getting there, Priscilla.
Thanks, Priscilla. So last question from me, Principal, and it's about we know that we're looking for the new principal. We're starting the process for it, and I guess one of the things that I was really thinking about was how do we transition that culture of partnership between the students and university as well. You being here in the in the student surgery is an example of the kind of partnership that universities want to see. So how do we go forward with having the same kind of culture of partnership between the students and the university?
I wouldn't worry about it, Adil. It will certainly continue to happen. That's the first thing. Because the new Vice Chancellor, whoever is appointed, will be absolutely fantastic, taking over a very, very strong university. And you're on the appointments panel, Adil. So the student voice is going to be heard very clearly in the kind of person they want to appoint. And my view would be that the most important attribute an appointed vice chancellor has for our university is that they hold the same value set that we do, and that they understand that how we do things is as important as what we do. And for me, although I have no say in who's the new appointee, I would love them to be an academic, to understand the research and teaching portfolios and challenge, and to have experience of, as I did, almost all the jobs in a university. So you really know what your staff and students are feeling, and the likely problems that are going to come up. But I've no doubt the appointments panel, led by our chair of court, with the student voice strongly heard, will get a fabulous person, the right values, the right level of energy and commitment to drive the university on to even greater heights of success.
Thank you, Principal. That's really reassuring to know. And thanks to everybody who asked questions and joined us today. We're finished on time. It was a half-hour session. And thank you, Principal, for taking out the time, listening to some of the concerns or questions and issues the students wanted to raise with you. We as a student body really appreciate it. We see a couple of questions, but we're up on time, but we'll make sure to take that forward with you, maybe in some of the committees or personally to get these answers for the students. But yeah, thanks a lot, Principal, and I hope you guys found this session very informative. And thanks a lot. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.